All right. Note to self, don't try to run out to a restaurant right before Torah study. It's a little hectic. But quite delicious. All right. All right, so welcome everyone to the Tuesday night Torah study, sponsored by MTOI here and Beth Shalom locally. And it is cold here. I don't know where it is in the rest of the country. Some of you live up north and it's a lot colder even than here, but we are in the south and it is in the 30s and going down even colder right now. So it is freezing literally. What's it, 25? It is 25 degrees outside. And I am wearing my t-shirt. Well, those of you that don't know me don't know that I wear t-shirts all year long. I do own a few longer sleeve shirts. I wear them under protest. Okay, so I wear them because I feel like I have to wear a long sleeve shirt every now and then, but I don't generally wear long sleeve shirts. All right. Okay, David's coming in. All right, so looks like we do have, I didn't know how many people we'd have today because it's so cold. Good turnout considering. Fantastic. All right, so for those of you on the live stream, we got Manny on the live stream desk, and so he's going to take care of interacting with you guys. I assume we got Kurt on there as well, and so if he's on there, he can help as well. Please be respectful of Manny's authority in the live stream room. That'll be very helpful. Okay, so what we're going to do tonight, as we do on every Tuesday, is we're going to go through the weekly Torah portion. We choose to do this in advance of the Shabbat because on Shabbat we do topical teachings where we can piece the pieces together a little bit more effectively than you can just going through a Torah portion. I know there are congregations that do the Torah portion each week, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. But we do feel it's important to go through the weekly Torah portion to cover it, and so we want to make sure that we are getting that done. So we do it on Tuesday nights. So it's the Torah portion that would be for the coming up Shabbat. Okay? So we're doing it a couple 4 days in advance. And this way on Shabbat we'll continue with the puzzle. And listen, it's been my decision. Remember, Torah portion readings is a tradition, it's not a commandment. But my decision to do it differently is because when I have the majority of people together on a Saturday compared to the smaller group that I can get on a Tuesday, I think it's important that we can take the whole picture and put it together as best we can. And in the Torah portion, let's be honest, except for maybe Leviticus 11, there's very few topics that cover anything, like the the kosher foods chapter. There really is not one Torah portion that covers any one topic completely. I mean, if you want to understand about holy days, you need to go to several places, not just Leviticus 23. If you want to understand about Shabbat, you got to go to lots of different places. If you want to understand about any kind of Torah command, you got to go to lots of places. And so we're limited in what we can get out of a Torah portion in terms of a big picture or even a zoomed in topical understanding completely. Now, of course, you can use a Torah portion to launch into something like that, and we've done that in the past. But we feel it's important that we just cover what's in the Torah portion as thoroughly as we can in just in a couple hours, and we're going to do that tonight. So we're here in Genesis. And we're going to go ahead and read this week's Torah portion. And so the way this works for those of you on the live stream is we're going to go ahead and start off with any prayer needs that might be there. Then we'll do some quick announcements. And then from the announcements, we'll go into the reading of the portion. And we'll have people up here already ready to read. I'll need 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'll need 12 readers tonight. And so some people may read twice, and that's fine. And then after that, we'll discuss what we have in this week's portion, okay? All right, so we'll begin with prayer needs, and then we'll open up in prayer. So if you have a prayer or praise that's urgent and you want to raise your hand, we'll go ahead and have the mic go around. And we'll begin with Michael Diaz.
So just asking for prayer for Mia and for Alex. They both are kind of under the weather. And Mia's got a little boil on her tushy, so it's not good.
All right. We'll deal with that. Little children and the things that they come up with, it's challenging. It's hard enough if an adult has a problem, but when the little ones have it, especially if it's a painful one, and that kind of thing would be very painful. Yeah, that could be really tough. Okay, I know Wayne's got his hand up on this side. And those of you who are watching see some of us with jackets on. It's getting warmer in here, but it is 25 degrees outside, so it's pretty cold. All right, Wayne, go ahead.
I just want to ask for prayer. Like a week ago, I lost my job, and just want prayer to have Abba open up a door for me. I put applications in and just waiting for some things to come through.
Okay. All right. Did you check out Peyton's as one of those? Okay. All right, so let's keep Wayne in prayer for his job situation. Anybody else? Okay, bring it to the live stream. You got anyone, Manny? Okay.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I have Andy. Praise report for our daughter has not self-harmed or had a mental health hospital admission for 1 year since yesterday. And prayer report for Father to appoint the right advocate for her and her housing. Danielle Taylor, prayer request. My sister-in-law passed away. Please pray for comfort for her, her husband, and 4 daughters during this time. Johnny, praying that his health problems get resolved. Jonathan Thompson, praise Abba for tests and trials that keep us humble. Prayers for an unspoken. Prayer, Lady Di. Prayer request, my sister passed away Saturday, and I'm praying for her strength. Rachel Atkins, prayer request, safe flight for my husband Walter, who will be flying home on Thursday. Delia, please pray for my stepdaughter who has been diagnosed with a brain mass tumor, that it is not cancerous and that it can be removed easily. Chris Robbins, please pray for my wife and daughter to have their eyes opened. Shirley, healing and recovery request for her mom and best friend, and a few unspoken prayers. Alex, prayer for her faith-based online communities. YouTube made an announcement they will start deleting accounts that they won't advertise on. BJ, prayer request, I have my first hypnosis session tomorrow to stop smoking after 15 years. Let's see. Mr. and Mrs. Hewitt, please pray for my ability to understand what it is Elohim is asking of me and my family. Chuck Stalling, prayer for his health issues. Sharon, asking prayer for my son-in-law and daughter who are struggling with their marriage. Rebecca, praise Yahweh for continued blessings and the ability to bless others. Olivia and Janet Hoffman, kindly continue praying for wisdom, understanding for our family in regards to parenting. Daisy, please pray that my family will accept me and join in this new Torah Observant journey. Mark Holland, please pray for my mom for mental strength as she suffers from bipolar Parkinson's. Sarah Beth, prayer requests need to feel better. Also, I'd like to say a prayer request for my wife who's at home not feeling very well, so hopefully she feels better.
Amen.
Shandy, prayers for wisdom for our congregation, also having another baby. Shalom Marie, family restoration, and for reviving her prayer life. Laura Davis, prayer request dealing with stuffed nose and bad cough. Prayers for her boys to stay healthy and don't catch what she has. Randall McFarland, prayers for Stephanie who is battling an illness. Alyssa Holmes, pray for my mother, and now another situation has come up that she needs wisdom to know how to deal with. And then Rick Berry has a silent prayer for request for Earl Lee. Anonymous Mom, please pray for MTOI leadership. They have so many responsibilities. Praise also for leadership. Y'all are very much appreciated.
Thank you.
And I've caught up to everything.
All right, thanks a lot. Okay, so let's just add to this, anybody that has contacted us since the last time that we prayed, especially since Shabbat. I mean, it's only been a couple of days, but it doesn't take long for stuff to start going south on people. And so we certainly want to pray for all of that. I do want to, mention something that happened yesterday that really kind of struck me. I had an opportunity locally here and wherever you are, especially in the U.S., a lot of places did offer some free meals for the veterans yesterday. And I got to observe something that I think we should have in the body, in the community. I got to watch the veterans at the place that I got to go, and I'm not a veteran, but I went there to support the veterans in our congregation. But I noticed that any one of them had no problem walking up to any one of them, and they had something in common. They could talk to each other. A conversation could start. They were family on some level. They were very welcoming to each other. They respected each other. It didn't matter that they'd never met. In a line at the table, any one of them could walk up to any one of them. They could start a conversation, just as family. And that's, I think, the way we should be at some point. We should be looking forward to the body being that way, where we should be able to walk up to each other and have that kind of relationship, just recognizing, oh, you're part of the body. Just like someone recognizing, oh, you're Navy, oh, you're Army, oh, you're Air Force, whatever it is, and you recognize because they wore their hats or something to show what they were, what branch they were from. But just to watch that interaction and the love and the respect and honor they gave each other for serving. And you know what? We serve each other. We serve a great and incredible King, a great Creator who loves us, and we are also in battle. And you can also smell the smoke on us. We're not Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You can smell the fire on us. Okay, we've been in that fire. We've been in that battle. And, we are very much dealing with the same kinds of things. And so, it just struck me, and I was very impressed to see that relationship that's always there with them, because they have something common, right? The common thing is that they've been through that which is called the military, that experience that if you've not been through it, you don't know. Same thing with being in the Messianic Torah observant body. Believing in Messiah, trying to keep commandments, trying to be submitted to covenant. Other people don't know what you're going through. They don't know what your experiences are. They don't understand what you're dealing with. But you do. You understand each other. And you should be able to have that as a special level of bonding that can really be there. Okay, Rabbi Tom, you wanted to say something? Okay, hold on. Let Steve get the mic for you. Give him a second. And by the way, it was Rabbi Tom specifically that I went to be with at the meal. I mean, others here with the military as well, but I wanted to make sure to honor my good friend, Rabbi Tom.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. When you're in the military, it's 24/7. And people often say, thank you for your service. But I think there's someone here whose service is 24/7. And we need to thank Rabbi for his service, which is 24/7.
I appreciate that.
It's a different type of service, but it's a real service.
Amen. Actually, it was funny because there was a guy standing in the lobby of the restaurant with little stickers that said, I served. And he asked me, did you serve? I said, I still serve 24/7, but not in the military. I said, there should be a different sticker for that, but no, I don't get a free meal today. Okay? And so, yes, I appreciate that very much, Rabbi Tom. All right. So let's go ahead and open up. I need someone to, you're going to need the mic still. We got to give it to somebody to pray. Steve, don't you know the routine by now? Come on, grab that mic. Okay, who's going to open us in prayer? Okay, since you went and grabbed the mic, you go ahead and do it.
Abba, Father, we thank you for this evening and an opportunity to get in together with the fellow Mishpachah and dig into your word and find what it is you would have us be so we can become more like you. In Yeshua's name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay, so quick announcements. For those of you on the live stream, we do this every Tuesday, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. We also live stream our Shabbat services every Shabbat at 1 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Time. Okay, so every Saturday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. We also stream the Rosh Kodeshes as well as the Holy Days, so all those things should be streamed. And so just to have that in our announcements. Now, upcoming, we also have our family Thanksgiving we're going to be doing here. Of course, I know there's people online already probably having cows because they think it's pagan, it's this, it's that. Look, the original origins are a linkage back to Sukkot. Okay, if you want to go and do your research, you'll figure out that that's what originally it came from. All right, but we're going to be doing that here. If this is important, if you are planning to come on that weekend, on the 28th, through the 30th, or the Saturday will be the 30th, if you're going to be here for that, please let us know that you're planning to be here for the meal so that we can include you in the head count and make sure if you need to bring something. So please get in touch with Rebitz and Julie, my wife, and let her know that you are coming. Because we know that some of you might plan to come and spend a long weekend here, and that's great. We'd love to have you. But we need to know you're coming so we can plan for you, okay? And that evening, so we're going to start that around 2 o'clock, so that we're going to start a little bit later, so that evening around 6 o'clock, we're going to live stream a quick Rosh Chodesh service, okay, for Rosh Chodesh Kislev. And so we'll be doing that evening, okay? So that'll be the next new moon. And so I just wanted to make sure to get those out there. We're also actively working on getting our website page up for Passover. And so we'll have that hopefully up here soon. We did talk about it today, and we're getting things in line for that. And so we should have that up pretty quickly here. So I think that's going to cover it for the announcements. And so let's go ahead. Oh, by the way, we had a really good bunch of leadership meetings on Sunday, just so you know, with the South African leadership as well as with the full leadership council representing people in Northern Ireland, USA, Canada, South Africa, etc. So we do have people, including Texas, or including Wisconsin, or including Ohio. Now we have people all over the U.S., Canada, and a few other countries that were all in the meeting. It was great. And I really appreciate their service, okay? Their willingness to take time every month to spend a few hours working together to figure out how we can serve the body more effectively, okay? Amen. All right, so this week's Torah portion is Vayera. Okay, what does Vayera mean? And appeared. Okay, this is going to take us from Bereshit, from Genesis 18:1 through 22:24. Okay, so that's our sort of parameters this week as we go through the portion. All right, and we're going to cover quite a bit of exciting things as we go from chapters 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. And we have 12 readings. Now, if you are going through this here or if you're going through it online, I do highly recommend that you have some sort of way to take notes. I mean, I know digitally now a lot of people do stuff digitally, whatever. So I'm not just saying have a pencil and paper or whatever, but if you have a question or a comment about anything that you hear read today, please go ahead and make note of it. If you've got something that you'd like to say, some insight you'd like to share about anything as it comes up, certainly make note of it as we're going to go through these couple of chapters. Okay, so if you're going to read, we have some readers up here already seated. We're going to do 12 readings today. We're going to begin with Steve Waffle. We'll finish at the end then with Rabbi Tom. And so we'll kind of work it that way. And so I'll call you up one at a time. I'll recite a traditional blessing over each person, tell you what verses you're reading, and then you'll go ahead and read that portion. Let me just take the microphone stand over here. All right, Steve, coming up. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Steve, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Steve's going to take us into chapter 18 and read the first 10 verses.
Okay. And Yahweh appeared to him by the terebinth tree in Merah, while he was sitting at the tent door in the heat of the day, and he lifted his eyes and looked and saw 3 men standing opposite of him, and when he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them and bowed himself to the ground and said, Yahweh, if I have found favor in your eyes, please do not pass your servant by. Please let a little water be brought and wash your feet, rest yourselves under the tree, and let me bring a piece of bread and refresh your hearts, and then go on, for this is why I have come to your servant. And they said, do as you have said. So Abraham ran to the tent of Sarah and said, hurry, make these 3 measures of fine flour, knead it, and make it cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd and took a tender and good calf, gave it to a young man, and he hurried to prepare it. And he took the curds and the milk and the calf which he had prepared and set it before them and stood by them under the tree as they ate. And they said to him, "Where is Sarah, your wife?" And he said, "See, in the tent." And he said, "I certainly return to you according to the time of life. And see, Sarah, your wife, is to have a son." And Sarah is listening in the tent door which was behind him.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Steve. Okay, Rebitz and Joanne. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rebitz and Joanne, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Rebitz and Joanne is going to take us now from verse 11 to 22.
Now Abraham and Sarah were old, well advanced in age, and Sarah was past the way of women. And Sarah laughed within herself, saying, "After I have grown old, shall I have pleasure, my master being old too?" And Yahweh said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh, saying, 'Surely I truly have a child, since I am old'? Is any matter too hard for Yahweh? At the appointed time I am going to return to you according to the time of life, and Sarah is to have a son." But Sarah denied it, saying, "I did not laugh," for she was afraid. And he said, "No, but you did laugh." And the men rose up from there and looked toward Sodom, and Abraham went with them to send them away. And Yahweh said, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I am doing? Since Abraham is certainly going to become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I have known him, so that he commands his children and his household after him to guard the way of Yahweh, to do righteousness and right ruling, so that Yahweh brings to Abraham what he has spoken to him." And Yahweh said, "Because the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very heavy, I am going down now to see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry against it that has come to me. And if not, I know." So the men turned away from there and went toward Sodom, but Yahweh still stood before Abraham.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Rebitz and Joanne. Okay, Tricia. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Tricia, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Tricia is now going to take us from verse 23 to the end of chapter 18.
And Abraham drew near and said, "Would you also destroy the righteous with the wrong? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Would you also destroy the place and not spare it for the 50 righteous that were in it? Far be it from you to act in this way, to slay the righteous with the wrong, so that the righteous should be as the wrong. Far be it from you. Does the judge of all the earth not do right?" And Yahweh said, "If I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I shall spare all the place for their sakes." And Abraham answered and said, "Look, please, I who am but dust and ashes have taken it upon myself to speak to Yahweh. Suppose there are 5 less than the 50 righteous. Would you destroy all the city for lack of 5? And he said, "If I find there 45, I do not destroy it." And he spoke to him yet again and said, "Suppose there are found 40. And he said, "I would not do it for the sake of 40. And he said, "Let not Yahweh be displeased, and let me speak. Suppose there are found 30. And he said, I would not do it if I found 30 there. And he said, look, please, I have taken upon myself to speak to you, Yahweh. Suppose there are found 20. And he said, I would not destroy it for the sake of 20. And he said, let not Yahweh be displeased, and let me speak only this time. Suppose there are found 10. And he said, I would not destroy it for the sake of 10. Then Yahweh went away as soon as he had ended speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place.
Amen, amen. Okay, thank you, Tricia. Okay, May. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless May, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, May, you're going to take us now into chapter 19 and read the first 13 verses.
Okay. And the two messengers came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. And when Lot saw them, he rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. And he said, look, please, my masters, please turn into your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet and rise early and go your way. And they said, no, but let us spend the night in the open square. But he urged them strongly, and they turned into him and came into his house. And he made them a feast and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. Before they lie down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both old and young, all the people from every part surrounded the house. And they called to Lot and said to him, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us and let us know them. So Lot went out to them through the doorway and shut the door behind him and said, please, my brothers, do not do evil. Look, please, I have 2 daughters who have not known a man. Please, let me bring them out to you and do to them as you wish. Only do no deed to these men, because they have come under the shadow of my roof. But they said, stand back. And they said, this one came in to sojourn, and should he always judge? Now we are going to treat you worse than them. So they pressed hard against the man Lot and came near to break down the door. But the men who reached out their hands and pulled Lot into the house with them and shut the door. Then they struck the men who were at the doorway of the house with blindness, both small and great, and they wearied themselves to find the door. And the men said to Lot, have you anyone else here, a son-in-law and your sons and your daughters and whomever you have in the city? Bring them out of this place. For we are going to destroy this place, because the cry against them has grown great in the before the face of Yahweh, and Yahweh has sent us to destroy it.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, May. Kathy? He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Kathy, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, take us now into verse 14 through 26.
Thank you. And Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who had married his daughters, and said, get up, get out of this place, for Yahweh is going to destroy this city. But to his son-in-laws, he seemed to be as one joking. And when morning dawned, the messengers urged Lot to hurry, saying, get up, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be consumed in the punishment of the city. And while he loitered, the men took hold of his hand and his wife's hand and the hands of his 2 daughters, Yahweh having compassion on him, and they brought him out and set him outside the city. And it came to be, when they had brought him outside, that he said, escape for your life, do not look behind you, nor stay anywhere in the plain. Escape to the mountains, lest you be consumed. And Lot said to them, oh no, Yahweh, look, please, your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have increased your loving commitment, which you have shown me by saving my life. But I am unable to escape to the mountains, lest calamity overtake me and I die. Look, please, this city is near enough to flee to, and it is small. Please let me escape there. It is not a small matter, and let my life be saved." And he said to them, "Look, I have favored you concerning this matter also, without overthrowing this city for which you have spoken. Hurry, escape there, for I am not able to do any deed until you arrive there." So the name of the city was called Soar. The sun had risen upon the earth when Lot entered Zoar. And Yahweh rained sulfur and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah from Yahweh out of the heavens. So he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities that grew on the ground. Oh, one more. Okay. Where was I? Thank you. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a post of salt. Thank you.
Amen. Amen. Okay, Michael. "He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Michael who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen." Okay, Michael's going to take us now from verse 27 to the end of the chapter.
And Abraham arose early in the morning and went down to the place where he had stood before Yahweh. And he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the plain. And he looked and saw the smoke of the land which went up like the smoke of a furnace. Thus it came to be, when Elohim destroyed the cities of the plain, that Elohim remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrown, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot had dwelt. And Lot went up out of to Zoar and dwelt in the mountains, and his 2 daughters were with him, for he was afraid to dwell in Zoar. And he and his 2 daughters dwelt in a cave. And the firstborn said to the younger, "Our father is old, and there is no man on the earth to come into us, as is the way of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine and lie with him, so that we preserve the seed of our father." So they made their fathers drink wine that night. And the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he was not aware of it when she lay down or when she arose. And it came to be on the next day that the firstborn said to the younger, "See, I lay with my father last night. Let us make him drink wine tonight as well, and you go in and lie with him, so that we keep the seed of our father." So they made their father drink wine that night as well. And the younger arose and lay with him, and he was not aware of it when she lay down or when she arose. Thus both the daughters of Lot became pregnant by their father. And the firstborn bore a son, called his name Moab. He is the father of the Moabites to this day. And the younger, she also bore a son and called his name Ben-Amin. He is the father of the children of Ammon to this day.
Amen, amen. All right, thank you, Michael. Michael said, that was a weird one. He's not wrong. All right, Shira. "He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Shira, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen." Okay, Shira is going to take us now to chapter 20 and read verses 1 through 18. That's the whole chapter, actually. There you go.
And Avraham set out from there to the land of the south and dwelt between Kadesh and Shur. and stayed in Gerar. And Avraham said concerning Sarah his wife, "She is my sister." And Abimelech, sovereign of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. But Elohim came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, "See, you are a dead man because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife." However, Abimelech had not come near her, and he said, "Yahweh, would you kill a righteous nation also? Did he not say to me, 'She is my sister'? And she, even she herself said, 'He is my brother.' In the integrity of my heart and in the innocence of my hands I have done this." And Elohim said to him in a dream, "Yes, I know that you did this in the integrity of your heart, and so I kept you from sinning against me. For this reason I did not let you touch her. And now return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and let him pray for you, and you live. But if you do not return her, know that you shall certainly die, you and all that are yours." So Abimelech rose early in the morning and called all his servants and spoke all these words in their hearing, and the men were greatly frightened. And Abimelech called Avraham and said to him, "What have you done to us? In what have I sinned against you, that you have brought on me and my reign a great sin? You have done matters to me that should not be done." And Abimelech said to Avraham, "What did you have in view that you have done this matter?" And Avraham said, "Only because I said to myself, 'The fear of Elohim is not in this place, and they shall kill me for the sake of my wife.' And yet she is truly my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. And it came to be, when Elohim caused me to wander from my father's house, that I said to her, 'This is your loving commitment that you should do for me. In every place, wherever we go, say of me, he is my brother.' Then Abimelech took sheep and cattle and male and female servants and gave them to Avraham. And he returned Sarah his wife to him. And Abimelech said, 'See, my land is before you. Dwell wherever it is good in your eyes.' And to Sarah he said, 'See, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. See, it is to you a covering of eyes before all who are with you and before all others, and you are cleared before everyone.' And Avraham prayed to Elohim, and Elohim healed Abimelech and his wife and his female servants, so they bore children. For Yahweh had closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Avraham's wife."
All right, thank you, Shira. Okay, next up, Wayne. All right, I've got 5 more, and I've got, 3. So I need 2 more people other than Wayne and Marty and Rabbi Tom. Okay, he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Wayne, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Wayne's going to take us now to chapter 21 and read verses 1 through 11.
And Yahweh visited Sarah, as he had said, and Yahweh did for Sarah as he had spoken. So Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the appointed time in which Elohim had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore to him, Yishkak. And Abraham circumcised his son Yishkak, for when he was 8 days old, as Elohim had commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Yishkak was born to him. And Sarah said, Elohim has made me laugh, and everyone who hears of it laughs with me. And she said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? For I have borne him a son in his old age. And the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the day that Yishkak was weaned. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Mizraim, whom she had borne to Abraham Machon. So she said to Abraham, drive out this female servant and her son, for the son of this female servant shall not inherit it with my son, with Yeshua. And the manner was very evil in the eyes of Abraham because of his son. Till 11.
All right, thank you, Wayne. Good job. Okay, Marty. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Marty, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, now take us from verse 12 to 21. We're in chapter 21. So from verse 12 to 21.
But Elohim said to Abraham, let it not be evil in your eyes because of the boy and because of your female servant. Whatever Sarah has said to you, listen to her voice, for in Yitzhak your seed is called, and of the son of the female servant I also will make a nation, because he is your seed. And Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water, which he gave to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder, also the boy, and sent her away. And she left and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba, and the water in the skin was used up, and she placed the boy under one of the shrubs. And she went and sat down about a bow shot away, for she said, let me not see the death of the boy. And she sat up opposite him and lifted her voice and wept. And Elohim heard the voice of the boy, and the messenger of Elohim called to Hagar from the heavens and said to her, what is the matter with you, Hagar? Do not fear, for Elohim has heard the voice of the boy where he is. Arise, lift up the boy, and hold him with your hand, for I will make a great nation of him. And Elohim opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went in and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. And Elohim was with the boy, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer. And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Mitzrayim.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Marty. Okay, Manny. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Manny, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Manny's going to take us now from chapter 21, verse 22 to the end of the chapter.
21, 22?
Yep.
Okay. And it came to be at that time that Abimelech and Pichol, the commander of his army, spoke to Abraham, saying, Elohim is with you in all that you do. And now swear to me by Elohim, not to be untrue to me, to my offspring, or to my descendants, to me according to the loving commitment that I have done to you and to the land in which you have dwelt. And Abraham said, I swear. And Abraham reproved Abimelech because of a well of water which Abimelech's servants had seized. And Abimelech said, I do not know who has done this deed, neither did you inform me, nor did I hear until today. So Abraham took sheep and cattle and gave them to Abimelech, and the two of them made a covenant. And Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves, and Abimelech asked Abraham, what are these 7 ewe lambs which you have set by themselves? And he said, take these 7 ewe lambs from my hand to be my witness that I have dug this well. So he called that place Beersheba, because the two of them swore an oath on there. Thus they made a covenant at Beersheba, and Abimelech rose with Pichol, the commander of his army, and they returned to the land of the Philistines. And he planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, where he called on the name of Yahweh, the everlasting El. And Abraham sojourned in the land of the Philistine many days.
Thank you. All right. Rebbes and Julie, he who blessed our fathers, May he bless Rebus and Julie, he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May he bless Rebus and Julie, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us now into chapter 22 and read verses 1 through 12.
And it came to be after these events that Elohim tried Avraham and said to him, Avraham, and he said, Here I am. And he said, Take your son now, your only son Yitzhak, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as an ascending offering on one of the mountains which I command you. And Avraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Yitzhak his son. And he split the wood for the ascending offering, and arose, and went to the place which Elohim had commanded him. And on the 3rd day Avraham lifted his eyes and saw the place from a distance. So Avraham said to his young men, Stay here with the donkey while the boy and I go over there and worship, and come back to you. And Avraham took the wood of the ascending offering and laid it on Yitzhak his son. And he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and the 2 of them went together. And Yitzhak spoke to Avraham his father and said, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son. And he said, See the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for an ascending offering? And Avraham said, My son, Elohim does provide for himself the lamb for an ascending offering. And the 2 of them went together. And they came to the place which Elohim had commanded him. And Avraham built a slaughter place there, and he placed the wood in order. And he bound Yitzhak his son, and laid him on the slaughter place upon the wood. And Avraham stretched out his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. But the messenger of Yahweh called to him from the heavens and said, Avraham, Avraham. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Do not lay your hand on the boy, nor touch him. For now I know that you fear Elohim, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me.
Amen. Excellent job. Thank you. Okay, last reader will be Rabbi Tom. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rabbi Tom, who's come up to honor Yahweh in Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Rabbi Tom's going to take us from verse 13 to the end of the chapter, and that'll be our final reading.
And Avraham lifted his eyes and looked, and saw behind him a ram caught in a bush by its horns. And Avraham went and took the ram and offered it up for an ascending offering instead of his son. And Avraham called the name of the place Yahweh Yireh, as it is said, On the mountain Yahweh provides. And the messenger of Yahweh called to Avraham a second time from the heavens and said, By myself I have sworn, declares Yahweh, because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, that I shall certainly bless you, and I shall certainly increase your seed as the stars of the heaven and as the sand which is on the seashore. And let your seed possess the gate of their enemies. And in your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. Then Avraham returned to his young men, and they rose and went together to Beersheba. And Avraham dwelt at Beersheba. And it came to be after these events that it was reported to Avraham, saying, See, Milcah too has borne children to your brother Nahor. Uz is firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Kemuel the father of Aram, and Kesed, and Azo, and Pildash, and Yidlap, and Bethuel. And Bethuel brought forth Ribkah, and these 8 Milcah bore to Nahor, Abraham's brother. And his concubine, whose name was Reumah, also bore Teba, and Gaham, Tahash, and Ma'akah.
Amen. Amen. Okay, thank you, Rabbi Tom. All right. All right, excellent job, all you readers. Thank you very much for all the readers. Excellent job. Okay, our traditional blessing after the Torah readings. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata betochenu Baruch atah Yahweh noten haTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh your Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us a Torah of truth and has planted eternal life in our midst. Blessed are you, Yahweh, giver of the Torah. Amen. Amen. All right. Wow, a lot of things happening in that Torah portion. You know, a lot of stuff. Now, sometimes you understand why they might break this down into a 3-year cycle, because there's so much that happens in the Torah portion. All right, so Steve's got the mic. If you've got a comment or question here locally, you can go ahead and raise your hand, and he'll bring around the microphone. If you're on the live stream, we got Manny with the assistance of David Hayes over there. And so they'll try to take care of that. Let's try to be respectful. This is not a time to put forth your own teachings and agendas, but we certainly will appreciate comments and input and questions. All right, Steve, I know you probably have one, so go ahead.
All right, yeah, for 18:1, I guess, I have that Abraham recognized Yahweh, so that brings forth the question to me is, when Abba comes to your door, are you excited and hopeful that what you have done has found favor in his eyes? Or would you be first, and then the next question would be your first desire to serve him, or are you looking to be served?
Amen. Amen. Excellent point. And I should have mentioned this with the Torah portion discussion. We do want to go chronologically, and Steve's almost always right there at the very first verse, so that's a good way to start. But just if we can, let's try to deal with chapter 18 before we go to 19 as best we can. It doesn't have to be a strict rule, but at least we can get the flow better if we do that. Okay. One of the things that I think is important, and we see that in verse 1, is that, he recognizes who's there. Okay, he recognizes who's there, and in his humility, he says, if I have found favor in your eyes, don't pass by your servant, in verse 3. And throughout this whole little section here, notice that, and we're not going to talk about tithes and offerings and stuff, but he runs to get him the best stuff he's got. He's going to go get and provide the best. And so that's where it's a mindset for us. When Yahweh's involved, are you trying to make sure you're providing him with the best that you have? And it's about the best of your time, the best of you, the best of your stuff, just the best. When he appears to you, and I'm hoping that you have been, awakened, your delusion bubble's been popped, your eyes are open, your ears are open, so he's appeared to you. Right? None comes as the Father draws. He's appeared to you. Maybe not like with Abraham where you could see him, but he's made himself known to you. And then from that point forward, are you excited, as Steve pointed out, and are you running to provide him with the best of what you have? Just an interesting point. Okay, who's next? Okay, Michael?
I was wondering if you could explain a little bit about 18:14. It says, is any matter too hard for Yahweh? At the appointed time, I am going to return to you according to the time of life. If you could explain what exactly that means, the appointed time. I'm going to return to you to the time of life. And I was wondering if that has any connection with 19:3, where he offers unleavened bread.
No, I mean, look, he's specifically what's going on here is when you hear that time of life, it's like they understood, we understand it takes 9 months to produce a baby. He's saying, I'm going to come back at the appointed time. If she's going to be pregnant, she's going to have 9 months, she's going to have a baby. I'll be back in 9 months when she has the baby. Okay? So, this is more of what's going on here. And so this is, now of course, then when he comes to verse 3, he says, but he urged them strongly, and they turned in and came to us, and he made them a feast, and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. Okay, so, do you want to think that this is Passover? And it was using unleavened bread, that might be, but this is not necessarily connected to when he said the appointed time there. There he's talking about the appointed time of life. It's appointed that you'll be generally 9 months in, that's when you have a baby. Okay? Now, of course, the other thing that we have going on here is, when he's having a discussion, He says, see, I shall certainly return to you according to the time of life, and see, your wife is going to have a son. You know, and you said, is anything too hard, right? You said the verse where it says, is there anything too difficult? Well, how many times has, a situation come up and you don't trust that he can handle it? Remember, Sarah's not a young girl here. And she hasn't had any children. I'm sure it's not for lack of trying. And Abraham's not a young guy either. He's 99 years old. He's going to be a father at 100. Okay, so when you're going through this study, you sit there going, do you think there's anything that's too hard for Yahweh? Are you going to, think, in verse 14, he says, is there any matter too hard for Yahweh? At the appointed time, I'm going to return to you. And so what's going on in your life where you're acting like something's too hard? Are you having a Sarah moment where you're sort of laughing to yourself going, I'm in trouble now because there's no way out of this? What's impossible? If you read the stories and you believe them, which all of you, I would assume, do, and you know your own life experience and you recognize what he's done, why do we think that something is beyond his ability to do? Are you in a situation requiring a parting of a sea? Are you like 90 years old and being told you're going to have a baby? What do you have that's so tough? Let's continue. Who's got the next question? Shira?
Thanks, Michael. You asked my first question. Verse 19 stood out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Abraham had an intimate relationship with Yahweh. And he says, I have known him. But here, he just not only does he obey Yahweh, but he commands his children and his household after him to guard the way of Yahweh. And that is such a picture of Yahweh's vision for his people. And I'd like to take a moment. May I commend someone in this congregation? I want to talk to you, Wayne. You and Catherine have come up in numerous conversations that I've had with people, both new and not so new. They all see you two doing this. You command your children in your household, and your children are beautiful. And you could see the presence of Yahweh in them. And as you're going through this trial, I just personally, and I think probably all of us who respect you so much, are watching to see the great testimony that Father will bring
Amen.
From this trial. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you, Shira. Look, you have a great metaphor here. In the beginning of the chapter, Abraham recognizes Yahweh. And we've often said that it doesn't matter that you think you have a relationship with him, but whether he thinks he has a relationship with you. And so later on in the chapter, it says, I have known him. Yahweh speaking, he says, I have known him so that he commands the children. So Yahweh's saying, I've known you. This is not going to be like those that said, Lord, Lord, and he said, I didn't know you. He said, I have a relationship with Abraham. Now, of course, we've already seen that in previous chapters because he's developed this relationship for a while. But that's the important piece, in that he's maintained the relationship. It's not just been an initial relationship, but he's maintained the relationship. If anything, he's grown in it. And and there's another place way towards the end of our study. Where did I write this? In 22:18, where we see that there was blessing that people were to receive because of the obedience to the voice. Right towards the end of our study, in 22 and verse 18, it says, and in your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed because you believed. No. But yes, he obeyed because he believed. But he obeyed. And he obeyed the voice. This is the essence of the Mosaic covenant, even though this is way before Moses. The whole covenant thing, the whole relationship is based on obedience to a voice, to Yahweh's voice, to what he speaks, to his spokesperson. And so here he says, look, he says, in reiterating the promises, he says, I will certainly bless you, and I shall certainly increase your seed as the stars of the heavens, the sand of the seas, and let your seed possess the gates of their enemies. And in your seed, all the nations, the goyim of the world, the Gentiles of the earth, shall be blessed because you obeyed. See, a lot of times people want to talk about, oh, righteous Abraham, but he was, the father of believers, and it was just accounted to him for righteousness because he believed. No, I'm reading a lot of praise for him because he obeyed, which is because he believed. If he didn't believe, he wouldn't obey. This is exactly what James is teaching when he says, I'm going to show you my belief by my obedience, by my actions, by what I do. So it's a fabulous, Torah portion that covers from the beginning where he says he recognizes Yahweh. Yahweh recognizes him. That's why he stops by. And it's interesting, there's a verse I never wrote a note on before, but, there is one of these verse 5s that I've totally missed where it says, please let a little water be brought and wash your feet and rest yourselves under the tree and let me bring a piece of bread and refresh your hearts, and then go on, for this is why you have come. Interesting. Abraham felt that the reason Yahweh showed up was for hospitality. He said, this is the reason you've come, so that you're on your way somewhere. Abraham never thought for a second he was where the end point was, but that he was so pleased that Yahweh would stop by on his way and wanted to serve. He said, for this is why you have come. You've come to get a piece of bread and have your feet washed and, and be refreshed for wherever you're going. And so do we treat people with that level of hospitality, even if they're not necessarily coming to see us, or it's not about us, but that they're going on a journey? And he said, look, this is the reason you came. And it just struck me today because I've read this so many times, but it never really hit me about the verse. He says, because he said, this is why you have come to your servant. This is why, to refresh your hearts and then go on. That's what Abraham assumed. That was his. Now there was more to it, obviously. And he was the reason they were there, to kind of convey a message and do a few things. But he was going to at least understand that I'm here because they know I will serve them. I will welcome them, I will care for them, and I will serve them. Because remember, our two great commands is loving him and loving each other, and we exemplify that through these type of behaviors. We think about prayer and obedience as ways to love him, but then we also think about the way we take care of each other. And here you get to see both kind of play out, because Yahweh appears to him in a physical manifestation where he can take care of him and provide something for him. Okay? Now, preemptively, since I know we're going to get to this, I might as well hit it myself. We're going to talk about the somewhat of a cheeseburger that's made here in verse 8. Okay, so what about what's going on here? Yahweh appears to Abraham. Abraham says, let's go get the tender calf, let's go have some cakes made, etc. And Abraham then takes curds and milk and the calf, which he had prepared, and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree as they ate. Okay, so let's get a lot of these elements there. First of all, understand this is important for our idiomatic phraseology and other things that are going on, and also for our cultural understandings. Abram said, it said here, the stuff that he prepared. He didn't prepare them. He sent the young man to get a calf. He sent his wife to do a bunch of things. But see, ultimately, he prepared it. Because it was all under his covering, under his instruction, under his guidance. That's the culture. So it all came to be his credit because they helped him honor the guest. So it said that he prepared. Okay? Okay, so, because Abraham ran to the herd and took a tender and good calf and gave it to a young man, and he hurried to prepare it. And he told his wife to go bake the cakes. So it doesn't look like Abraham did a whole lot. But he was hosting the people and talking to them. Okay, this is Yahweh and two messengers with him. And so he was doing his hosting, and so it was a team effort. But it got to come across as, and set before them, and he stood by, he says, he took the curds and the milk of the calf, which he had prepared. Well, he had it prepared. So the honor goes to his authority over the whole situation. So that inclusiveness in the one. It was as if they all were him doing the thing representing one. So this is important, okay? And so we have a couple of really interesting cultural examples actually in this Torah portion. You know, this is one of honoring those that are with him. We have another really bad one, but also helps us understand the culture, where Lot offers up his daughters. You sit there, that's when Michael's like, that's weird. That's kind of an awkward Torah portion part where Lot's going to offer his daughters up and say, do whatever you want with them. See, ladies, again, one of the things that we have to always embrace here is that the stuff we're reading was not written to us. It was written to those people that would have understood that culture at that time. It was about what they were doing. Now, it's for us because we can glean stuff out of it. It says for examples for us, but it wasn't written to us. So because it wasn't written, we're not the target initially of the writing. We don't often understand. You in 2019, whatever the secular calendar we use, it's hard to fathom the way women were treated and looked at and understood in biblical times. And there's a lot of debate over a lot of things because women today think, well, women should do this and women should do that and women should have this authority. But we're forgetting that was not the culture. That was not the culture here. When Lot took, and by the way, these are married daughters. And we say, yeah, he took his married. He said, but they were engaged, is what we see. They were betrothed. It says married, but they were betrothed. They had not been with a man. And by the way, those men were great men, weren't they? They laughed, disappeared on him, and had nothing to do with the whole thing. Which is another part of the cultural problem we still have today, is the men not, men seem to disappear when they're needed. So we've got a lot of problems that we see going on here. But I know this is not easy for the ladies sometimes because today you don't live in that culture, although there are some parts of the world where they still do. But we don't have that culture generally. And so, some of the ladies are thinking, if my husband walked over and told me, go hurry up and bake a cake and do this and do that, I'd be like, yeah, well, what are you going to, I mean, there's a lot of independent ladies out there that aren't just going to let a man just go tell them to hurry up and cook something. Matter of fact, some of the ladies are looking like, well, I didn't know guests were coming. How could you just invite somebody? I'm not ready for guests. Any ladies want to own that one? See, Abram didn't ask her if it was okay to invite them in. Abram didn't ask her if she was ready for guests. Abram made a decision and said, we're welcoming these guests, and everybody on the team here is going to get to work and make it work. And notice nobody argued with him either. Okay, Sarah doesn't argue. The young man doesn't argue. They just go and do what they're told to do. Because Sarah was very happy and comfortable to call him master. But he also was a real man. And so she was very comfortable to call him that because he was that in all the appropriate ways the term should be. Of course, societally and culturally today, we have a failure on both sides. The men and the women are not walking in their roles correctly. And this is really a big, big challenge. But just let's keep that in mind because some of us will read stuff and go, how could that be? Well, because it was then, not now. And that would have been something that would have made sense, why or how we may not understand, but back then, that would have been something that would have made sense. And you have to understand that culturally and societally, women and children were not looked at in the same way as the men, as adult men. They were sold off in slavery. They were sold into indentured servitude. They were treated in very different ways. Is that right or wrong? It is what it is. whether it's right or wrong. It's the way it was. It's documented for us. And we have to understand that that's where the stuff we got all birthed out of. And then we move on and we get to where we are today. So let's be careful that we don't generally twist, bend, and mess up what we're reading in Scripture, because we're looking at it through modern day, emancipated, fully independent, sovereign, female eyes. Okay? I'm not saying that you should have other eyes. I'm simply saying just be careful that you're trying to understand that time and that culture through your eyes today. You who can do almost anything, you who have no restrictions on what you can do, you with the authority that you have in your life that society would not have given you. Okay? A conversation came up at our leadership meeting. This is really an interesting point. Culturally, Hebraically, and I hadn't thought to mention it, but it was mentioned and brought up, we don't understand that women, like you might see even today in some of the Islamic, cultures, women were not seen in public. Women were not out in public. Women were protected because women by themselves in public were at risk. So very interesting to have a woman brought out by herself in front of Yeshua. So when a lot of this really came out again out of the never-ending seat argument, but just to understand that women would not have been out there on themselves, on their own. Women would not be out in front. Women would not be seen, and nobody would be out there to see their seat except those at home. What I'm just saying is that doesn't prove anything. I'm just saying we do not understand the culture that we are looking at through our eyes today as a culture that they had then. You ladies have no problem just going out and doing the shopping and going and doing your jobs, going to work, all by yourself. You go to whatever. You can do all your independent stuff, whether it's business or culture or entertainment, safe generally in going around. That was not the world they lived in. A woman by herself was not safe. Okay? So this is a big deal. And so we have to be careful as we read some of these things and we go and scratch our heads. Look, the society Abraham lived in, there was the potential for them to go into a place like where Abimelech was. And if they knew that this was your wife, they might likely kill you to take her if she was pleasing to the sight, pleasing to the eyes. But now if she's a relative, they may try to buy you off, so to speak, and give you all kinds of stuff and take your sister. But if you were the husband, that's why it took Yahweh himself to get Abimelech's attention and say, hey, this is another man's wife. I mean, generally speaking, Abimelech would have been like, so what? Except this is Yahweh talking to him, not just anybody. He said it was his sister. If it's his wife, well, I could just kill him for not only lying to me, but because I don't need him to be around, so I could take her. Most of these kings would have just killed him for lying. Although she really was the daughter of his father, a different mother. But at the same token, it was a misrepresentation meant to deceive Abimelech. But you can see that's a cultural thing. He said, I knew there was no fear of Yahweh in this place. What he forgot to understand was the fear of Yahweh followed him. I will curse those who curse you, bless those who bless you. That was already said to him. He wasn't trusting that fully yet. Until we get to the Akedah, the offering up of Isaac, when he calls him and he says, Hineni. He says, Avram, and he says, here I am. He says, Hineni. He's ready now, and he's going to get tested. So that's part of the big deal. So then we get to the whole kashrut issue, back to Abraham dealing with things in chapter 18. So he takes the curds and the milk and the calf, and he sets it before them, and he stands by under the tree while they eat. And by the way, notice that he served them and he didn't eat with them. This is another cultural honoring and respect. The servant did not eat with the guests. Even though he was wealthy in his own right, he was the head like a king of his own clan, but he recognized the king. Remember, we're all in the middle. Abraham recognized he had authority over who he had authority over. He sent his wife to go do something. He sent the young man to go do something. But he stood by under the tree because he was underneath, subservient to those that came as guests. And he stood by while they ate. and gave them their space to eat and made sure they were served. So he puts meat and milk together in the meal. Now you ask a Jewish person, well, what about, this whole can't eat milk and meat together? They've got separate dishes for dairy and for meat, products and all this other stuff. Well, what about Abraham over here in Genesis 18? And their answer is usually something along the lines of, well, that's before Moses. Yahweh doesn't change. Genesis 26 says that Abraham knew the Torah. Okay, I believe that's 26:5. He said he knew the laws, the statutes, the Torah. But yet, we see Yahweh himself eating. Now, they'll make some absurd argument that, well, he ate the dairy, then he waited an hour and a half, and then he ate the meat. Sorry, but that's not in the verse. It said he placed all of that in front of them, and they ate it. Okay? It doesn't say he served one, and then they waited the Talmudically appropriate amount of time and then ate the meat afterwards. Okay, so let that be hopefully a part of dealing with the argument about milk and meat. Okay, now there are some dietary issues. I mean, eating milk and meat together is not the easiest on your digestion, can cause all kinds of other issues, but it's not a scriptural mandate that you can't. Now there are a couple of places where it says do not boil a kid in its mother's milk, which I think we should stick to the Pashat, which means literally don't cook a kid in its mother's milk. It's not an allusion necessarily to, putting cheese on your meat products. So like having chicken Parmesan or a hamburger with meat, like a cheeseburger or some other thing, okay? So hopefully that, I know somebody was gonna ask that anyway, so I just wanted to make sure we got that covered because they ate the milk and the meat together. Okay, who's next? Now that I took 20 minutes. Okay, Marty, go ahead.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring out something that's interesting to me. In 18, 20, and 21, he talks about the reason he's passing through, which is to go check out Sodom and Gomorrah and find out what's going on. Mm-hmm. So, and of course, we all know the stuff that was going on. They showed themselves out. But I found something in Ezekiel chapter 16 that I thought was interesting, and it's 16 starting with verse 48, and this is in the middle. He's really dressing down his people about all that they've done to him and how they're not living for him. But he brings up Sodom in verse 48, and he says, "As I live, declares the Master Yahweh, neither your sister Sodom nor her daughters have done as you and your daughters have done." And then in 49, he says, "See, this was the crookedness of your sister Sodom. She and her daughter had pride, sufficiency of bread, and unconcerned ease, and she did not help the poor and needy. And they were haughty and did abomination before me, and I took them away when I saw it." So to me, that tells me about the long suffering that Yahweh has, that it took a while for them to come to the place where we see them in chapter 18. That didn't happen overnight. And other places that say that certain other people, their time hasn't developed yet. It's not their time yet. They've still got a little ways to go.
Right.
He's really long suffering. And then, in Ezekiel, he talks about what their sin really was. It wasn't just the homosexuality or whatever, it was that was going on at that time. So anyway, I just wanted to point out that I found that in the long suffering of God.
Right, and you also see the bookmarking of the time frame. In the beginning, you see Abraham's hospitality and as compared to the Sodom hospitality. They're like, bring out you guys so we can do what we want with them and everything else, as opposed to, hey, let us go make a nice meal for them and take care of them and provide for them. So rather than serve, they wanted them to come and be whatever they wanted them to be. So it's packaged in between there. Who's next? I mean, I've got so much I could do, but I'll let you guys go for a little bit here. Okay, Manny, go ahead.
Okay, Beth would like to know Genesis 17:17. Abraham laughed. Okay, hold on. Genesis 18:12. Sarah laughed.
Right.
What was the difference between Sarah's laugh that it was questionable?
Okay, so the problem is not so much, it doesn't really explain it quite clearly, so we can just read two things into it as best I can understand. One would be, Abraham laughs because he thinks it's funny, meaning that it's not that he didn't believe him, he just thought it was funny. Like it's like this isn't like, come on, I'm 99 years old, or 90 years old, and I'm gonna have children now this way, as opposed to Sarah, who's not believing it. Okay, we can read that into it, although it doesn't say. But what we can do, the bigger problem for Sarah is that she denies it. This ends up being her big problem. Okay, she laughs within herself, which, by the way, when she laughed within herself, they said, well, she laughed, and well, how did they know she did it within herself? Okay, and so, they obviously could know her thoughts. But she denies it. And that's really where the problem comes out. In verse 15, it says, but Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh. And so that's really the issue that's going on. And then they said, no, but you did laugh. Anybody ever been in that kind of debate with your spouse or your children or any of that? Well, you did this. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. But see, thankfully, this didn't go like those go, where they go on and on and on. This one ended with, no, but you did. And then she knows that that was it. Okay? So we should not be getting into those kind of debates. But he said, no, but you did laugh. There's a couple of places that you see in this Torah portion cycle here, in this particular piece of the cycle, where conversations end quite clearly and firmly when Elohim is involved and it's over. Okay, so it says, Yahweh said to Abram, why did Sarah laugh? Verse 13, and she denied it. And then Yahweh says, oh, but you did. And then it says, and the men rose up, and there was no more discussion. Then when Abraham starts doing the negotiation, what if there's 50? What if there's 5 less than that? What if there's 5 less than that? But you notice when he gets down to the end, he says, I would not destroy for the sake of the 10. Yahweh went away as soon as he had ended speaking. So he ended the conversation. Okay, and when it was over, it was over. There was no more discussion. This is kind of where, we find Moses in trouble, and Moses is saying, well, what do you think? Do you think maybe I could still kind of go into the land? And Yahweh was like, we will not discuss this ever again. Do not bring that up again. I do not change my mind. But then people say, well, he did change his mind about Sodom and Gomorrah. No, he didn't change his mind. He wanted to see where Abraham's heart was at. He already knew what was going to happen. He already knew what the situation was. He was wanting to see where Abraham, remember, he's holding Abraham up into this high, high position. Where's his heart? Well, he cares enough. Well, are you going to destroy the whole city for, what if there's 5 less? What if there's 5 less than that? What if there's 5 less than that? Okay? And there wasn't even that. There was, Matter of fact, Lot wasn't such a winner in his own right. He was just Abraham's relative, and he was saved for that reason. He was delivered out of that mess because he was Lot. If he wasn't Abraham's nephew, I don't think that would have happened. Okay? Because, you can see that Lot, his wife, and his kids weren't like stellar anything. Okay? What else you got?
Okay, kind of in the same vein of stuff, Renaissance would like to know regarding the same issue in Luke 1:18-22, where the gentleman was struck with being mute. He wants to know the difference between Abraham and Sarah in this part and that gentleman having kind of the same situation and being struck silent.
Okay, so What's the difference between why Zechariah said to the messenger, but by what shall I know this, for I am old and my wife advanced in years? And the messenger said, I am Gabriel who stands in the presence of Elohim and was sent to speak to you and announce to you this good news. But see, you shall be silent and unable to speak until the day this takes place. Okay? So we have a situation here that is for a purpose. Now, this is not the same as dealing with Abraham and his wife, and Abraham laughed and then she laughed and everything. This was not any kind of a deal like that. This was Abba deciding, or Yahweh deciding with each person how he needs to show them that their faith is lacking and that they're going to have to see and understand something. Okay? And so he works differently with different people, knowing what they need at that moment and what's going to be the more impressive of the roles. Okay? And so, now bear in mind that Zechariah is also a priest. He's got things to do and things to say, and now he can't speak. This is a big deal. Okay, so that's another part of this, all right? All right, because we have John's father, he's a high priest, essentially. Now he can't talk. And people are going to wonder, what he got struck dumb, he couldn't speak? I mean, this is really going to make an impression not just on him, but all the other people that are dealing with him. There wasn't really a whole lot of other people dealing with Abraham and Sarah at that point, except their family. Here's a man in a prominent position. So this was done in a much more public way. Okay? Next one.
Andy would like to know, 18:4, the feet washing here. I know it's custom, but does this relate to Matthew when Yeshua washes the feet of the taught ones? What's the significance of feet washing, Rabbi?
Yeah, they're definitely connected from the simplicity of generally the servant at the lowest level of rank. I mean, if there was a hierarchy of ranking in the class system or the caste system, you're dealing with those that have the responsibility over different parts of the household as servants. The lowest one at the bottom of the rank was the one that washed the feet. And so showing the desire to serve on the highest level of servitude was to go and be willing to wash feet. And so you see Yeshua, who was trying to make, he's trying to make a point on some deaf, dumb, and blind apostles who just didn't want to receive this whole understanding about the least among you will be the greatest, and the greatest servant will be the greatest, etc. He figured, I know what'll really get their attention. I, who they know, am Messiah. They're all impressed with me. I'm their teacher. I'm going to gird myself up and wash their feet so that they can just get an image they'll never get out of their heads. See, we look at it, we don't get it because nobody's washing our feet. I mean, we might do that thing once a year or we might do it once in our life, but it's not like a daily thing where people, we wear shoes and we wear socks and we're now coming, our feet are not that dirty. I mean, they may smell pretty bad every now and then, but they're not that dirty, okay? But when you're walking around in sandals and barefoot out there on dirt roads and dirt everything, your feet are dirty. Okay? And so the people would come in the house, there was the one who would wash their feet. And so, yes, it was a big deal when you had guests come over, that generally when they would come over, you would have someone to wash their feet. So you see Abraham doing this, but then you see Yeshua doing the same thing. That's the connection. It's not a religious ceremony. It's not meant to be a religious ceremony. It's meant to be an unforgettable impression-making point. That of servitude on the highest order. Because the lowest servant is the one who washes the feet. Okay? So then you have the two people at the highest gap. The one who has the most honor having the feet washed by the one who has the least. Which then, of course, transfers honor to the least. Okay? And so here's, Yahweh appearing to Abraham, and Abraham says, let us bring the bread, etc., and let us wash your feet, and all those kind of things. Let us bring you water, okay? That doesn't say that Abraham did the feet washing, but it's just saying he understood that this is things that you did to honor guests, all right? Yeshua was all impressed when he showed up, and he had somebody not only wash his feet, but pour perfume over them. I know a few teenagers could use that. Back to that smelly feet thing. Okay, so next question.
Staying within that realm, Genesis 18:13, Mark and Vicky would like to know, why did Yah's repeat of what Sarah said not match exactly what Sarah said in 18:12? Could that be a translation issue?
Yeah, no, it's look, often when we talk to people about things, we don't quote them exactly. We paraphrase what they say. I mean, it was basically the same thing she said. She said, "Look, I'm old. Am I going to have a baby?" So there's no real difference in what's being said there. Sarah laughed with herself, saying, "After I've grown old, shall I have pleasure, my master being so old too?" Now, of course, she's listening in verse 10. And Sarah's listening, and then, and she was like, she's laughing. She's thinking, so my husband and I are going to have the pleasure of sexual interaction, and we're going to have a baby, and I'm going to have the joy of motherhood? So we're old people. And so then verse 13, and Yahweh said to Abram, why did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I truly have a child since I'm old? I mean, she said that same thing. And remember, we're both, in both cases, there's an expression of what was a thought in her heart, not necessarily words. Okay, this was within herself. So having the words translated out, the thought translated out, it's the same thought. Okay?
Okay, Norma Silva, I'm going to try to figure out this question. I think she's saying, wasn't it like human thought for Yahweh to doubt, to say or not to say to Abraham what he was planning to do in 17 through 18?
I mean, look, that's not, in my opinion here, I mean, it's not that he was, deciding whether or not. He's saying, look, would it be right for me to hide something from Abraham, who I said is going to be a great father of many nations and all these wonderful things? I mean, we should let him know what's going on and basically see what his reaction would be to it. And that's all it's saying there, really. It's not where he was thinking that he was going to hide something or not hide something from Abraham. He's saying, since Abraham is certainly going to become a great and mighty nation, and he's going to have all this authority, and he commands his children well, and by the way, that goes back to the Vahafta, and you shall impress these things upon your children, etc. And he's doing all these things. Wouldn't it be right for me to share with Abraham what I'm planning to do with the human leadership that I'm working with at this point, and see their thoughts? Plus, this also was him saying, I'm going to let Abraham know that this was me, not just some random fire that burned down Sodom, not just some random, attack from somebody else. This was me. So now Abraham would know this is the source, this is where it came from. And just on a side note, Norma, Rabbi is R-A-B-B-I. She'll know what I mean. Okay. Yeah. Just for future reference. And capital R, please. Okay, next question. Sorry. Hey, listen, if you're going to write things and put it in a public post, you got to have to spell it right. All right.
All right, this one, I figured you can comment on this one. In chapter 18, there were 3 messengers at Abram's tent, but there only seems to be 2 of them that enter Sodom into Lot's house.
Yeah, the other one stayed with Abraham. It says that the other 2 went down to Sodom, and the other one, when Abraham's having this discussion about how many, the other 2 have already left to go down to Sodom. Okay, so Yahweh stays and the other 2 go. Okay, so we have that in there. There's no problem there. Okay?
All right, Greg Wallen would like to know, 1825, any comparison, contrast with Matthew 5:45?
Okay, with Matthew what?
5:45.
I like the way people ask these questions as if I should just know it off the top of my head. Well, there's probably some similarity in what's being discussed there. Okay, so it says, far be it from you to act in this way to slay the righteous with the wrong, so that the righteous should be as the wrong. Far be it from you, does the judge of all the earth not do right? And then in Matthew it says, so that you become sons of your Father in heavens, because he makes his sun rise on the wicked and on the good, and sends his rain on the righteous and on the unrighteous. Look, the points are completely different, okay? The point in Genesis is that Abraham's saying that there's righteous there also, are you going to kill everybody? And Matthew's trying to say, be careful about how you judge, because the sun is rising and setting on the righteous and the unrighteous, and quite frankly, you don't know which is which. And so be careful what you're doing. By the way, that fits into, and I noted this for myself, in Matthew 13, in the parable of the wheat and the tares. Okay, he says you're not qualified to pull up the tares because you don't know which is which. And so that is Matthew 13, 24 to 30, and that matches up with 18, 23. When he says to him, and at the end of that where he says, and Abraham drew near and said, would you also destroy the righteous with the wrong? And then he goes on. So that's more connected to Matthew 13 than Matthew 5. Okay? So you're right trying to make the linkage in Matthew. Just go ahead another 8 chapters. Okay? Because Matthew 13, I think, is much more connected, the whole point of the wheat and the tares. Okay? All right. Next.
Jack Oxenrider, in chapter 19, why was unleavened bread baked?
Oh, that was very commonly used on a regular basis. It was used in a lot of the offerings, okay, that we end up seeing in Leviticus. All right, now could it have been that it was during Passover? Certainly. We don't know if it was during unleavened bread. We don't have any instruction about unleavened bread at this point. But you need to understand that unleavened bread was used often enough. Okay, if you were in a hurry and wanted bread, you weren't going to wait for it to leaven. You got to remember, we didn't have bread-making machines and bread ovens and bags and jars of yeast to make our bread. You had to let it sit and leaven. Or you needed a starter lump to put in it to leaven it. And that took time. Okay? I mean, we're talking like hours, exactly. It took a long time. So they often made unleavened bread. So should we read anything into it? Well, you can. I don't know if it makes any difference. It certainly could have something to do with it. I don't think it ultimately changes anything in the story, okay, or what we're supposed to glean out of it. Okay, next question.
Norma Silva had one too. I missed this one. Did the messenger have a particular appearance that Abraham and Lot recognized them and were not surprised to see them?
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, look, we get a strong sense from the Genesis text. I mean, you also have other things like the Jasher text. But I mean, from the Genesis text, you get a strong sense that Abraham is never surprised when Yahweh interacts with him. I mean, surprised meaning that it's Yahweh. I mean, he was surprised to find out he was going to have a baby, at that age. But I'm saying, but he's not surprised ever when Yahweh interacts with him that Yahweh's interacting with him. So when Yahweh says, Abraham, he doesn't freak out like, who are you? Okay, he seems to have very clear understanding of who he's dealing with and how he manifests, so he would know that it's who he's dealing with. He recognizes immediately that it's Yahweh in the text there. I mean, it actually is in the Hebrew as Yahweh, and we know it's Yahweh that he's interacting with. So Abraham does have enough of a relationship to know what that manifestation at that time would have looked like, how Yahweh chose to manifest. Okay?
Olivia and Janet Hoffman, dear Rabbi, chapter 19:30 was the calamity that happened with Lot's daughters because of Lot's fear of dwelling in Zoar instead of going to dwell in the mountains?
No. Calamity with the daughters had to do with the daughters. I mean, the daughters just, they had been engaged. The men stayed behind and got destroyed in Sodom, and they just wanted to produce, and they wanted children, and they just, this is their craziness. Okay? All right? And by the way, out of that craziness comes our, just absolutely stellar groups known as the Moabites and the Ammonites. And so this does not generationally go well. I mean, so badly that in Deuteronomy 23, that those are the two groups that will never be in the assembly, even onto the 10th generation. Deuteronomy 23:3. No Moabite or Ammonite. Okay, so that's how offensive that move was by Lot's daughters. Okay?
Angelica would like to know, Genesis 19:14 through 15. Even though Lot's daughters were married, why is it they were able to be saved from the destruction? How does the cleaving of the flesh apply?
Okay, so this is maybe good for the once saved, always saved crowd. Being delivered out of some stuff doesn't mean you're being delivered out of everything. And sometimes it's not because of your merit. Remember, Moses even tells the people, this isn't because of you that you were brought out of Egypt, because Yahweh promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and what they did. But that didn't guarantee them to get into the land, did it? Okay? Lot wasn't stellar. Lot was a complete losing mess. I mean, he was just, look, we use the terms the way we use the terms. Call me a judge if you want, but I mean, he was a loser. He was weak. He was fearful, didn't trust. Yahweh told him very specifically, I will not do anything until you get to where I'm sending you, and you need to go where I'm sending you. And he was afraid, didn't trust, nothing. He'd seen everything that was going on with Abraham. He still chose to leave and split from Abraham. He wanted to do what he wanted to do, self-sovereign issues, fleshly issues. But yet he was saved out of there. Why? For Abraham's sake. Just like not all of the kingdom gets taken away from Solomon and his children for David's sake. Not because Solomon was such a winner, okay, but because it was for David's sake. Now, the journey continues, and that's when they get to earn their own position and their own rewards. Remember, you will reap what you sow. Okay? But they were given that opportunity for Abraham's sake. So for Abraham's sake, Abraham cannot point out and say, why did you kill my offspring and my nephew who was there with his family? And he could appreciate that Yahweh did bring them out of there. But the rest was on them. Okay? Hopefully that answered the question. Wait, any more? Okay, Rabbi Tom, go ahead.
Thank you. Something you said before that we have to have the faith that Yahweh can get us out of tight places. I'm paraphrasing what you said. And I think the mistake that Lot's daughters made is the same one that Sarah and even Avraham made. They just couldn't wait on Yahweh. They couldn't see any solution, so they took it upon themselves to do something. And then when Ishmael came about, that's a problem that's still with us today. And then Lot's daughters, of course, took it upon themselves to take their own action. They said, there's no man for us. And so they made a false assumption. And consequently, they took a drastic wrong action.
Amen. Look, I'm going to rephrase that just a little bit, okay? They took matters into their own hands and were not in alignment with structure. Lot wasn't either. Yahweh told them where to go, he didn't go. He told them not to look back, they looked back. If you don't follow and get in line with the structure, then, without structure, destruction. How's that? Okay? Destruction comes when you're not within the structure. And that's the bad stuff that comes about. So the ladies take it upon themselves. You see this happen an awful lot. Does it ever go well? No. Let there be a lesson to all you ladies that think that you're helping things and fixing things when you jump in on your husband's situation because he seems like he doesn't know what he's doing, and then you jump in and it doesn't go well. But, there is no but. It just doesn't go well. It might even short term look like it's going well, but ultimately it doesn't go well. But he's not. Well, then that's also why it's not going well. But it's not going to get any better just because you jump in. And so we have example after example of the ladies jumping in. Now, bear in mind, the ladies are only able to do this because the guys are pathetic. Just call it what it is. Okay, they are pathetic examples of male-created human beings according to what Yahweh had intended. But that's no excuse for the ladies to jump up and grab a hold. And we see that happen time and time again. And it never goes well. So what do you end up with? A pox on both houses, so to speak. I mean, both sides are at fault. Both sides are at fault. So we have that problem going through. So let's just keep that in mind when you're looking at this. And Rabbi Tom makes the point, but yeah, the ladies took it upon themselves. They didn't want to wait. They didn't seek counsel. There was no vertical structure. Lot came out from the vertical structure. He had that with Abraham. He chose to come out of it. By the way, there are some verses you're missing where it says Lot was sitting at the gate and they ask him, are you still going to be a judge over us? In verse 9. This is 19:1 and 19:9. Because the people that were quote unquote leaders or judges sat at the gates. So here was a man who was honored in a position, even though they came in as sojourners, being a man at the gate. And so he had been immersed quite fully in their culture and in their situation, even to have a position among the leaders at the gate. Because that's a metaphor and also literal. That's a place where the men would meet by the gate and make their decisions. So you have that in verse 1 and in verse 9 of chapter 19. Okay, next. Okay, Wayne?
Can I jump to 22?
Sure.
Okay.
We're running out of time anyway, so might as well jump anywhere.
Well, this would probably be a question everybody would ask, but we see in 22 that it says it came to be after this events that Elohim tried Elohim. Okay, so we see that as a Deuteronomy 8 test there.
What verse?
Verse 1.
Okay.
Okay, but if you go back to 18, it says, he's talking about, should I hide this from Abraham, that we're going to bless him and make the stars of the heavens and all. So he knew from the beginning what Abraham would do.
Yep.
Okay, and then why did he wait till this time to try him? Just to let it build up in his heart and trust Yahweh?
Look, Yahweh knows, we've talked about this many times, that there are verses that say that he doesn't let things come upon you that are beyond what you're able to handle. And so he knows the timing. And along the timing, we talk about this in the baptism of fire teaching, that these are tests or quizzes, like a pop quiz. And so as Abraham progresses, he has multiple moments. Same thing you see with Moses. There are multiple moments where he gets tested to see how far he's come along. Are you ready to go the next step? Are you ready to go to the next level? I mean, he already knows that Abraham will pass, but he has to see him do it. Now, he knows he'll pass. That doesn't mean that he doesn't still need to see him do it. So he needs to see him do it. Same with all of you. He needs to see you do it. Because there's growth that you get to go through by going through it. And that gets you ready for the next test. If you didn't actually go through the first test, whatever that was in your life, you never would have been ready for the second one. Abraham's ready in chapter 22 because of the previous tests. Does that make sense?
So he knows what the outcome of our test is going to be automatically, but he wants to see how we respond to it.
Well, he's already seen us go through it. Remember, time is irrelevant to Yahweh. So he's seen you do it, but that's because you did it. But he still needs to see you do it. In other words, he's not going to say, well, I know if I put him through it, he'll do it. He's actually seen you do it. And he guides and either causes or allows situations to go at the right timing so that you can have the appropriate amount of time to grow and then to have the right level of testing and the right amount of time to grow and then the right level of testing. And so sometimes he'll do something to intervene so that there's a little bit more time for you to grow between something because you're not quite ready yet, but he knows you will be. And so he might slow things down just a little bit. Other times he'll speed things up knowing that you're ready. And let's just go ahead and get that taken care of. We'll allow it to go faster. All right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay?
Rabbi, it was sort of on what Wayne was saying. Is it also a witness to all the people that not only Yah sees, Moshe sees, or Abraham sees, but it's also witnessed by the people in Abraham's case, but
yeah.
it's
I mean, in
sort of
Abraham's
like
case,
a
he went up
witness.
on the mountain just with Isaac.
Right.
But he did tell them, my son and I are going up to worship and we will return to you.
Right. And Isaac witnessed it. He witnessed being on the wood. with his
Well,
dad.
he probably at his age had to put himself up on the wood.
Yeah.
Okay, a lot of people think of Isaac as, in the movies, as like a young teenager, like 12, 13. Now he's probably like 40-something.
Really?
Okay? And so, he's not a kid here.
Oh.
All right?
didn't
And he
know
has
that.
to climb, Abraham's not going to force him onto the wood. Okay? Because he would easily be able to handle his father, I would guess, at that point. This is a voluntary thing, just like Yeshua. This is an example of, it's a shadowing of Yeshua.
Yes.
Okay? And so he has to do this knowing, he says, well, where's the offering? And I noticed we got the wood for the fire and all this other stuff. And he's not dumb. He's got this all figured out and figures, my father trusts, I trust. And he's understood all about Yahweh up to this point too. He's been trained by his father. And so he gets on there voluntarily. Okay?
Look at that obedience to hit the authority of his father
Right.
unto death. Wow.
Now, I want to say something I don't think I've ever really pointed out before because it hit me because of the discussion about, with the Sodom and Gomorrah thing, Yahweh explains what he's going to do. But notice that Abraham, having already experienced that, still does not feel it necessary to ask Yahweh to explain in chapter 22. Isn't that interesting? He never asks for any explanation. Even though in the Sodom and Gomorrah thing, he was given an explanation, even though he didn't ask for it. He said, let me tell Abraham what I'm planning to do. He doesn't explain anything to him. He says, go up and offer up your son. Doesn't explain why, doesn't explain what's going on. I mean, he was given reasons because there's a lot of wickedness in Sodom and Gomorrah, and the whole thing is a disaster. There's no explanation. But Abraham, see, all of us, we want to argue, we want to ask, we want to understand. I've got so many of you in the past and so many of you currently that are still holding on to things that you will not do that he has said to do or won't stop because you don't understand. Instead of just obeying. Well, I'm not going to do it till I understand. Got a lot of tsitsi people telling me that, or a lot of whatever, Holy Day, whatever it is, saying, well, I'm not going to do that till I understand. I don't see any verse that says understanding is required. Obedience is required. What you need to understand is who you're obeying. You get that down, everything else will work fine. And so you see that, I think it's a great contrast in this Torah portion because the portion covers both. So you get to see Abraham in a discussion. Now, by the way, Abraham didn't ask Yahweh what he's planning to do with Sodom and Gomorrah. Yahweh decided to tell him. You don't see Abraham asking a lot of questions. Well, why are you doing this and why are you doing it and what's your plan? You don't see Moses doing that either. Now, you do see Abraham say, well, what if there's this many righteous, or what if there's this, etc. Which, by the way, is also Abraham trying to understand Yahweh, and Yahweh trying to say, I wanted to allow you to do that so you can understand me. You see Moses saying things like, well, if you go ahead and kill everybody, what's that going to do to your reputation? But Yahweh already told him that he was planning to do that. And just wanted to see how Moses would react. Well, what if I went and just killed everybody and started again with you, type of thing, But you don't see them asking, well, what's your plan? I mean, Abraham was told, get up and go. Can I have a little bit more detail, please? My GPS needs a location. Where are we going? No, he just got all the stuff together and said, hey, we're leaving. Where are we going? No, that way. He didn't even have a pillar of cloud or a pillar of fire to follow, He was just told to go. He was given a little bit more detail eventually, but, he was just told to go. All right, what else you got? Getting close to 10 here, so.
Yeah, I know. There's quite a few questions, too. Renaissance, please, Genesis 19:8. Clearly, rape is bad in any form. However, why in the world would Lot offer up his daughters in such a way? I'm certain that doomed their relationship.
Because, as I pointed out, he was a pathetic human being. I'm not saying that as a joke. Okay? That's why he offered his daughters. But again, remember, culturally, that was probably not unusual. This was not probably a shockingly surprising thing to someone to do then. Okay, but it is a really pathetic thing to do. Because the daughters, and ladies, you can understand this, the father needs to be the protector and the hero of the daughter. Okay, not Superman, not like an Avenger or some other thing, okay? Okay, we're talking about dad. Our Heavenly Father is our hero. He's our protector and provider. The father role is provider, protector. And that's especially important, dads, if you've got daughters. And our daughters are very unsafe out there in this world unless we are watching over them. And so I would say that makes him an incredibly pathetic human being. But just, not to his defense, but to understand this was not a shockingly unusual thing for him to do in that culture. All right? This was everyday stuff, sadly, in their culture. All right? Any other question?
Andy would like to know 1926, where Lot's wife looks back, obviously in pain that her family and stuff is about to perish. Why a pillar of salt? As we know, salt is normally covenant.
Well, first of all, this was almost 6,000 years ago, not 1926. He said in 1926. Okay. Actually, it's about 4,000 years ago because Abraham was 1948, actually, going forward in time from creation. So, Anyway, but in 1926, I totally missed it because I was too busy trying to make a joke. I do not know who has done this deed. Okay, what did you want to say about 1926?
Oh,
it was 3 years before the crash. I don't know. I mean,
in Genesis 1926.
Yes.
Where Lot's wife looks back, she basically wanted to know why she turned into a pillar of salt. As we know, salt is normally meant in covenant.
No, but she was turned into a pillar of salt because salt is something that is a symbol of forever. Okay? And so this is her punishment forever. She turned back. By the way, this matches up with Luke chapter, where did I get it? 9 in verse 62. It says, anyone who puts their hand to the plow and looking back is not worthy of the kingdom, of being his disciple. So look at Luke 9:62. There's your connection. Okay, with the Brit Hadashah. Okay? But salt had to do with its understanding of lasting forever. Okay?
Norma Silva wanted to know, like in 2017, when Elohim heals Abimelech and talks to Abimelech in his dreams, why it says Elohim talks to him as opposed to like when he talks to Abraham, it says Yahweh talks to Abraham?
Because it's not clear what kind of messenger service he was using to talk to Abimelech. He could have been doing it through a vision, through one of his angels, it's just coming from Elohim. Just like when it says that Abraham prepared the stuff, Abraham didn't prepare the stuff. Okay, but it was through Abraham that it was prepared. Well, the message that came from Elohim wasn't being delivered by Elohim himself. Okay? When Yahweh was talking to Abraham, we know exactly who was talking to Abraham. Okay, he identifies what part of Elohim is talking. Okay? And by the way, the silliness is starting because it's almost 10 o'clock, and that's why you get the bad jokes. Okay. See, those of you who know me know that we must be getting close to 10 o'clock. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Norma Silva, 2012.
Yep.
Why is the sin between the daughters of Lot was so great considering that Lot was unaware of it, but Sarah and Abraham were half brother and sister, and they knew about it and they were blessed?
Okay, say it one more time. So 2012 is where Abraham's explaining, yes, she is truly my sister. She's the daughter of my father, but not of my daughter, my mother. And she became my wife. And what was the...
Well, her question is, why was the sin between the daughters of Lot so great considering that Lot was unaware of it, but Sarah and Abraham were half brother and half sister, and they knew about it and they were blessed?
Okay, so there are many verses about, when we're dealing with the idea of incest. This is, again, a difference between having the same father and having the same mother. Okay, and that seems to be the big differentiating point here. All right, and in this case, there's a direct relationship between father and daughter. These are his daughters, as opposed to a more disconnected, having the same father but different mother. Okay? Two children out of the same mother is too different than two children out of different mothers with the same father. Okay? And so these are his daughters. They're actually of his seed. They're directly related to him. There's no direct relation between Sarah and Abraham from the point of view that the way they would count it through the mother. So through the father, it's more indirect. Okay?
Andy would like to know in chapter 20, verse 17, does this mean that some period of time had gone by as the women of Abimelech did not conceive due to Sarah being held by him?
Well, I think it's just letting us know the state that things were in that were happening, and then, at this point, when we don't know how long it was that this was all going on. We know that Sarah was protected, and we know these kings, by the way, these kings, as we were talking about earlier, the people at the gates would notice the women and pull them off to the side. I mean, these kings probably would have dozens of them to maybe have their choice of, and they, for whatever reason, never got to Sarah. So it could have been a long time. Look at how long it took for Esther to get her chance and her time with the king. After they went around and grabbed all of the women in all the different provinces, looking for a wife. I mean, she was over a year and hadn't had her opportunity, and she hadn't gotten picked. And so, we don't know how much time is going on here, but we do know that during that period of time, there was a closing of wombs that Abraham now prays to have opened, okay?
All righty, next one.
Yep.
Olivia and Jenna Hoffman, chapter 20, verse 18.
We have to try to get probably to the end here.
Okay, there's probably about 5 more after this.
Only 5 more? Okay.
Chapter 20, verse 18. Is healing connected to teshuvah, obedience, humility, and submission to Yahweh?
Is what? I didn't hear you.
Chapter 20, verse 18. Is healing connected to teshuvah, obedience, humility, submission to Yahweh?
Well, I mean, in this case, Abraham's doing it because he appreciates that Abimelech lets the Sarah go, and he recognizes that Abimelech had been punished because he had Sarah, and so he prays that for the healing. And so it's not so much that Abimelech did teshuvah, he just was obedient to what Yahweh said, and so he realized, Abraham realized that he was also partially to blame in this. He had, he could have just been more honest about things, and maybe this wouldn't have played out this way. So he feels like he was connected to the punishment, and so he prayed for the healing. It's not clear that, if anything, it's only Abraham that's making teshuvah in some way. It's not Abimelech. Okay?
Okay, Normal Civil 21:2. Ascending offering, what is the difference to the others, such as guilt, burnt sin, peace offering, etc.?
Okay, I'm going to do what I do often. Let me go back for a second to this Abimelech thing. By the way, notice that Abimelech never does anything to resemble teshuvah. He simply releases Sarah as instructed, and he never asks for healing. He doesn't do it. This is just Abraham having compassion on Abimelech. Okay, now the next question is the type of offering that Isaac understood they were doing based on what they were bringing with them was an ascending offering, which is a whole burnt offering. Okay, so this is going to be the whole burnt offering, and so he's looking for the lamb to be sacrificed. Because he knew from everything else they were doing, these were generally the implements that you needed to do that particular type of offering. Okay, so he understood what they were doing. What's the difference between them? Wait till we get to Leviticus chapters 1 through 5, the first Torah portion in Leviticus, when we cover the 5 different types of offering. Okay?
Angelica would like to know, Genesis 21:8, why was a feast thrown for weaning a child?
I'm just trying to think of an answer for that. I mean, it doesn't say anything like that. Look, they were just happy, so they threw a feast. It's like, like, why do we throw a birthday party? Why do we throw an anniversary party? There's no place that tells you to do it, no place tells you not to do it. You're celebrating, you're happy. So here they have a son, and by the way, not every kid made it through the weaning process. I mean, their mortality rate was pretty bad. And so, not all of them made it. So they were excited. Here's the child made it through probably the more dangerous time. He was weaned. Which means that the child was now off the breast and onto food and he was weaned. Okay? And so they threw a feast for this.
That's it.
That's it? Okay, now I've got 37 other things over here, but we'll skip them because it's after 10 o'clock. Oh, I don't know. Let me just see if I can think of anything in here. Actually, we covered most of it. So, and actually, I did have 21:8 with the word feast in there, so I did have that actually in my notes. Actually, we covered most of it, so we're good. The only thing we left out was a very important verse, actually. I left out one thing. For all those of you that want to understand this whole oneness doctrine versus there being more than one, 19:24 tells you that Yahweh called down fire and brimstone from Yahweh in heaven. So Yahweh on the earth, hanging out with Abraham, calls down fire and brimstone from Yahweh in the heavens. Okay, so 19:24 is important. It says, and Yahweh rained sulfur and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah from Yahweh, out of the heavens. Okay, so there's two. And they're using the same name. All right, so that's just that's one of those interesting little verses to add. All right, and for those of you that have issues with circumcision or not, we do see that that Isaac is circumcised on the 8th day, as is commanded, and I think that will cover it for now. Amen. Okay, did you have?
Just one question about.
You'll have to ask me.
Giving up the daughters. If you have the representatives of Yahweh there, I mean, shouldn't we give up our whole family? You know what I'm saying? I know.
Well, I mean, look, her question is like, the representatives of Yahweh are there, and in order to protect them, why wouldn't you give up everything? No, they don't need protecting. So you're missing the point. Not you, but I mean, the person would be missing the point. Okay, well, we think somehow we need to protect. No, they were there to protect Lot. He was missing the whole point. But that's been his problem his whole life. His whole life he missed the whole point. So yes, you would give up everything for Yah, you'd be willing to, but he doesn't need you to do anything in order to, in thinking you're protecting him. Okay, you're blue, exactly. You're having this blue moment. Okay, so just so you understand, so again, Lot had the same disconnect he had always had. He did not recognize Yahweh in his fullness in his life. Yahweh shows up, he sends messengers, he recognizes who they are to some degree and invites them in and everything, but he's still thinking he needs to protect them. Why would they need protecting? But you see the same thing happens with Yeshua. Peter's thinking he's going to try to protect him. He ends up chopping off an ear. And, he's like, I don't need anybody to protect me. I can call a legion of angels if I want it right now and take care of everything. So why do you think I need your protection? I'm here to help you. Okay? That answer the question?
Well, I guess maybe protection, no, but what about honoring?
Well, look, it's not honoring to do those kind of things. I mean, he was trying to honor his guests by trying to protect them. I understand that. But, if he really wanted to protect the guests, he should have thrown himself out there. Okay? And if it was a play we're watching, everybody would have cheered. Good for you. Get out there. No, I mean, again, he was missing the point. Okay? See, remember, the whole book is about trust versus fear. He wasn't trusting who was with him. They weren't quick. Look, the men really dropped the ball, the ones who were engaged to the daughters. They laughed about the whole thing. Yeah, whatever, blah, blah, blah. They didn't know who they were dealing with. They didn't trust when they said, come on, get out. As a matter of fact, Lot still wasn't rushing to get out. They had to grab them by the arms and drag them out. Okay? Yahweh sends a message and shows up and says, you need to get out. You know what you do? You leave now. With whatever you got on, just go. But they even told them to get their stuff and hurry up and get out of here. Nope. Because he said, go get your children, go get your family, and let's go. But they dragged their feet. Okay? Not good. All right, who's going to close us in prayer? Okay, bring it back to David. Hazel, do it.
Thank you, God, for the time we've had to spend together, for the instruction we received and the clarity that rabbis brought to the word for us to be able to learn more of it and be able to apply it to our lives, and for opportunity to have this platform and the ability to connect with all those near and far. And dear Lord, we look forward to the opportunity to come together in Shabbat and celebrate and worship that with you, and look forward to being with the family then. In Yeshua's name we ask and pray.
Amen. Amen. All right, if anybody wants to wave goodbye, come on up here. Do a little goodbye wave. Everybody's tired and kind of making their way up here. I don't know, it's after 10. I'm just waking up.
Yeah, but he's always seen.
All right, Austin, do we have everybody? All right. All right, so on 3, we're going to wish everybody, we're going to wish everybody Laila Tov, which is have a good night. Shavua Tov, have a good week. Okay, Laila Tov, Shavua Tov, and then we'll tell them that we love them. Okay, ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Laila Tov, Shavua Tov, we love you.
Yeah. Stay warm.
Yeah. No, my chin here, right here.